On today's episode of Locked On 76ers, Keith and I talking about the tough news coming out of Boston. Ime Udoka suspended for the entire 22-23 campaign. How does that affect the Philadelphia 76ers if you had them up at the top with the Boston Celtics? Does it change anything for the division rival? We'll dive into it all next right here, Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. What's poppin', D?
Friday, man. It's Friday.
Yeah, a chilly Friday morning.
It is. I was going to say that too. It's a breezy Friday already, man. You can feel it in the home. You don't have the air on or anything, no fan running, window open, and you just feel that fall breeze creeping in there, man. So we're here. And if that means that we're starting to feel that, that means that basketball is right around the corner. And it is, because in just 3 days' time, we will have media day for the Philadelphia 76ers. And then on Tuesday, they will begin training camp in South Carolina. So we have a lot to talk about over the course of today and Monday before media day. And certainly once we conduct all of our conversations on media day, should be a fun time, man, as basketball is back in the air. For sure. We want to welcome everybody to Locked On 76ers. I'm Devon Givens from 97.5 The Fanatic Radio in Philadelphia. Keith Pompey, theinquirer.com, Sixers beat writer. And we thank you all for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On 76ers is free and available on all platforms, including right here on YouTube at Locked On 76ers. So when you do get up in the morning and we are your first listen, just make sure we're your first listen. Don't have us on the YouTube in the car up on your dash while you're driving. Just make sure you listen. You can do that at work when you're not supposed to be looking at us at work. You can, split screen, another tab, all that stuff at work with the YouTube as you guys are getting your day started. But Keith, we got to talk about Ime Udoka, the unfortunate situation with the Boston Celtics, and dive into two players that we think may have a role, but we're not quite sure with the 76ers. One being Paul Reed, who has had a busy offseason, and the other is Shake Milton. So we'll get to those two later on, but we have to start with Ime Udoka for the Boston Celtics, suspended the Boston Celtics 22-23 season. His entire year is done. I thought it was really weird, though, when you read the press release of how they said he's done for the year, but they're still going to have conversations with him about what his future is further with the basketball team, as if it's not just done for the year. He might not be coming back, Keith. And then he put out a real short release saying what he said. He apologized to the team, the organization, the fans, the players, and his family, and everybody who he's put through, just these troubling last few days, and asked them to respect the space and no further comment and all that stuff. But man, this is number one, the basketball side of it. This is going to be tough for a team that went to the NBA Finals. While they may have been aware of it, there was a report that also that they had found out as early as July that this was going on. They just decided to come down with the suspension and all. But for the basketball purposes first, they had a good thing going with him a year ago to get to the NBA Finals, a surprise team, respected team. He was an up-and-coming coach in his league. And now he's not going to be there. Now they have to adjust with Joe Mazzulla, a former West Virginia player, basketball player who also doesn't have his, clean record himself, but that's where they're deciding to go. Basketball-wise, Keith, how tough is this, do you think, from afar on the Boston Celtics players as they get ready for this next season?
I guess it's tough, but it is also, we have a veteran group, right? And, last year you look at it, he was a first-year coach. A lot of people didn't know how he would do. and they made it to the NBA finals, right? So I mean, when I look at it, it's kind of one of those things where I still think it's a wait and see. Now, I do think that Ime was a great coach. He should have got coach of the year. He was a good coach, solid coach. But at the same time, it's one of those things where he's also still, this guy is his interim coach, going to be the interim coach, and he's still going to have several people on the staff there. So to me, it's all about, coaches are great, but they still have Jason Tatum. They still have Jaylen Brown. They did pick up some other players. So I do believe that there's still going to be a quality team. And I think if Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown plays up to their potential, there'll still be a team that's going to contend for the Eastern Conference title. If not, I still think they're going to be that squad. So to me, it's to be determined right now.
And I do look at them as you just pointed out, the team that has a lot of veterans, including Al Horford, Malcolm Brogdon, as you mentioned, is a new addition there. Marcus Smart, the defensive player of the year, he's also there. So they do have a lot of guys who have been there for quite some time. Just having this thing hover over them to start off, how it will impact things, and maybe they'll get through it. And I still do, to your point, have them at the top of the Eastern Conference still because of the talent base. We'll see how they adjust with the coach situation. The only difference, though, as you mentioned, he was a new coach coming in. He was a new coach coming in from the start, though. He was a new coach coming in from the entire summer, where he was able to have those conversations, implement his game plan, and build and develop those relationships. And while Joe Mazzulla has been there as an assistant coach, and now he's sliding over to that big chair. He's no longer the friendly assistant. He's the head coach on the staff. So it will be something to monitor and to see how things play out in Boston, how this will all go along. Are you surprised that they went with Mazzulla and not necessarily bringing Brad Stevens back from upstairs? Or did you expect them to just have an assistant once we heard that maybe a suspension, shorter possibly, but now we know it's for the entire year? You surprised that they went that route instead of going with maybe a veteran person on the staff?
Well, when you look at Mazzulla's, history, I know he was a college coach, I believe, at Fairmont, and he had a successful 2-year stint as that head coach. He also was, a part of the organization with the Red Claws. I believe he was an assistant coach there and had success. So I think that, he was one of the guys who they're extremely familiar with. He knows, what they want to do and the system. And I felt like, when you look at a guy like Brad Stevens, he's a guy that says, hey, Danny Ainge gave me an opportunity when I was a young college coach that, a lot of people thought maybe this could have been, a little bit too much for me. So I think he looks at it as if, hey, we got this guy, he knows a lot about our system, probably more so than some of the other coaches on staff that we could have made the interim guy. And this is where we're going to go. So I wasn't really surprised. Now, when the history and about, Brad Stevens being a young coach, some people might say, you know what, Brad Stevens is kind of like, yeah, you got to come back out and help out. But look at it. When he was there as the coach the last year with the same players, it really didn't work out, right? I mean, yes, they didn't have Al Horford, but it didn't really work out. I think sometimes you get tired of hearing from the same guy. Secondly, he didn't do anything wrong. So if you got a promotion, why should you demote yourself because the head coach got suspended? You know what I mean? So I don't feel like it was, Brad Stevens had to come back and become the interim coach just because Ime Udoka did what he did.
Well, we'll monitor it and see where it goes and see how it affects the entire Atlantic Division, including where the 76ers may fall in that rank overall. We'll come back on the other side, and we got to start to tap into Paul Reed and what his role could potentially be on this basketball team. Montrezl Harrell, he's the new backup 5. But will there be a role for Paul Reed? We'll get into that next right here, Locked On 76ers.
When we talk about Bet Online, we talk about Paul Reed, we talk about all this other stuff, but really it's all about Bet Online when you really think about this upcoming NBA season, right? Why? Bet Online is your number one source for football betting, basketball betting this upcoming season. Find all the latest player development, team matchup, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores in every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device and learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. And I'm telling y'all, do it today, people. Definitely do it today.
A lot more points scored in that Cleveland-Pittsburgh game than I really expected.
I would I tell you, bro. You see, my problem is, you know what? We're both from Philly, but I'm about to tell you what my people from Pittsburgh used to tell me.
Yeah.
They used to say that y'all act like it's all about Philly and you don't know anything about anything else in the state. That rivalry, dude, it is not as like the Red Sox and the Yankees, but Michigan, Ohio State, but it's close. That's
I didn't say there wasn't a rivalry. I said the Pittsburgh Steelers stink right now. I don't know how they're going to put up points.
Now, regardless, so like
let's take it easy. They only put up 17 points. All right.
Yeah, but at the same time, is it, it comes, I don't know. It's something about those games, man. Like, who was it? You got two undefeated, two winless public league squads, and one might be great and the other one is. But when they play each other, that rival, it's kind of like, yo, it's on. I mean, I went to North Catholic.
Yeah.
We were trash in football, but we used to beat Frankfurt because that game, you know what I mean? We used to beat Frankfurt.
I know division opponents, Pittsburgh and Cleveland and all that stuff. I just said a little more. Look, it was 40 points outside of they're trying to run these pitchbacks and stuff to try to find a way to get down and scored when they were down 23-17. And then that totally flipped things. So be careful when you guys are wagering, because stuff like that, I know those bad bets, man, bad beats, as they call them. That stuff will get you at the end. It's 29-17 at the end, all because they're throwing the ball backwards and lateraling and all that, trying to find a way to get the ball down the field. Next thing you know, the ball bounces into the end zone and Cleveland falls on it. Now they have 29 points. Just wild. But anyway, that's the football side. You can go check out. I'm sure they're having a blast over there, Locked On Browns and Locked On Steelers, about that game on Thursday night. Big weekend in the NFL, of course. But thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen, where from time to time we may dive into other sports because we're sports fans. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you do get your podcast. Keith, Montrezl Harrell, we talked about him when the announcement was made that he was going to be signing here, what it meant for Paul Reed. But as we are closer, man, we look at them 10 deep right away for the 5 reserves immediately. But we also said that you go a little beyond, whether it's Paul Reed, Furkan Korkmaz, Shake Milton. They have stuff there, possibly Isaiah Joe, who knows, with this basketball team. What is his role as we get closer here? Minutes wise, is there something there where we might see him play the 5 potentially from time to time, maybe slide over to the 4 where that's probably the more natural position? What do you think his role will be on this basketball team once we get things started next month?
That's a good question, because I honestly think the two guys we're talking about, we're talking about him right now. You also early on, you said, Shake Milton. Those are there were 2 of the 3 guys on the team that, we really don't know what their role is going to be. And I think it's one of those things where they have to determine it. I think ideally what you want him to be is to kind of sort of be a situational energy player. A guy who would come in and provide great defense, lock somebody out by using his length, a guy who can run the floor, a guy who can do all the athletic things. But I also think it's up to him. As good as he is, the biggest knock on him was that, he struggled to adapt to what they wanted him to do, right? We all love him because we all saw the highlights. We all see a B-ball Paul from the mud. I'm doing this. I'm grinding. But some of the things, this role that they wanted to do, he struggled, and and becoming that way, right? But now I look at him and I think that there's going to be a huge growth because he has 2 years and he's hungry. He's always been hungry. So I feel like that his role right now, if I'm saying it, a situational player who comes in, he provides defense, he provides energy, he gets the crowd ignited. But that's not to say that when we look at a guy like Montrezl Harrell, who everybody says right now he's the guy because he's older, but when we factor in youth, when we factor in all this, Montrez is a guy who, you're going to want him to be a beast in the postseason, do all this other stuff. That's going to give Paul Reed opportunities to get some playing time. Is also because he's younger than him. Who knows? He may steal some of this guy's minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I think in regards to a role is what he wants it to be. It's going to be tough in the beginning, but if he could come out there and show that energy, if he knows where he needs to be at on the floor, he could make it tough for the Sixers not to play him.
Well, the one part that you mentioned at the very top was, situational, because one thing that he provides that Montrezl Harrell does not at this stage of his career is, while he does provide energy, they both do defensively. Paul Reed right now, even in year 3, going into year 3, is a much better defensive player, especially out on the perimeter where he can keep up with certain players out there on the floor as they drift out away from the painted area. So, and his recovery ability is pretty good too. So I think that will help out because there are going to be those times where Embiid is the two-way guy. Andre Drummond and Dwight Howard were more off rebounding and defense, lack of offense. Montrezl Harrell is the total opposite, where he's offense, not that much defense, a little bit of rebounding. And you're going to need that defense from time to time from that backup role from Paul Reed. So if he can carve out that niche right there behind both of those players, there are going to be those games where he might have 15 minutes next to his name in the box score, where Montrezl Harrell may only have 10 because of exactly what you're saying, where he matched up better against a particular team based on what he does as a guy who can defend a little bit better. So I agree with you. And, all that out the mud and stuff, well, we're going to find out because there's some competition there for him, and we'll see how he responds to that competition.
Right now, they all out the mud.
Everybody.
They're all grimy.
They all going to be grinding to get on that floor because there's a lot of people on this roster. And as we say that, we shift to the guard position, where we're going to have to talk about Shake Milton and him. He's been here longer. It wasn't necessarily the mud. Yes, he went through the G League and all that. Where's he fit in with the guard rotation on this basketball team? Tap into that next on the final segment right here, Locked On 76ers.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back. As the lady just said, you are Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey, Devon Givens, Shake Milton. That's an interesting one. Because when you look at if you say they have 12, this is your 12. Paul Reed is 11, 12. Is it Furkan Korkmaz or is it Shake Milton? Where do you lean? Because they both bring different skill sets. Neither one of them is a defensive player. Korkmaz is looked at as the more of the shooting guy, where Shake Milton can get hot and can shoot and make shots, but he's more of a player that can create and get to the basket and finish. With DeAnthony Melton here now, those minutes are no longer his. He's going to have to, as we said in the previous segment, get it out of the mud by doing something to get on the floor and take some of those minutes away from DeAnthony Melton. Keith, does Shake Milton find himself some minutes on this basketball team?
That's a great question right there, because when I look at this, when we talk about 12 players, right, number 11 player, and the number 11 player is always going to be Paul Reed, right? I mean, 'cause when we say that, like B-ball Paul. So even I'm not saying he's number 11 in the rotation, but he's like, we know who the other 10 guys are going to play are. So number 12 to me is going to be between Shake Milton and Furkan. Now, right now, a week ago, if you would have asked me, or a couple weeks ago, I would have said it's Furkan, right? Now I'm leaning to more fake Shake.
I
Now
would have
here's
said Furkan as well.
yeah,
Yep.
I would have said that. But when you realize that Shake Milton has been here all like a lot this summer working out, Furkan, meanwhile, was with the Turkish national team, doing balling. But the fact that
And fighting.
and fighting, yeah, and throwing them bows, right? So here's the deal, though. Shake has been able to showcase his skill in front of the Sixers, right? And then when you think about it, how coming out of training camp last year or heading into training camp first start, he was the best guard that they had. Ben
Yes.
Simmons wasn't around. Then he deals with these injuries. So, my thing is right now I got to give him the edge because, like we said, right now a lot of these guys are, and we talked about this before, a lot of these guys are 3-and-Ds who can shoot threes in the corner. They only have 3 guys on the team who can get their own shot, really. Shake Milton is one of them.
Yeah.
Right? And the other 2 is Maxey and then Harden. But Harden, can he still do it the way he used to do it? So I feel like Shake can come off the bench and give you some buckets. And you can also play him in the backcourt with a guy who can defend because he won't be as much of a liability because they got a Melton,
Yeah.
Anthony Melton. You have a Daniel House. You have all these other guys. So to me, I think, Shake have a role. Now, here's something else we got to realize about Shake, too, now. He signed a 1-year deal. The brother is trying to get paid, right? He's trying to get paid. So, this is like, this is it for him. So I feel like if he can stay healthy, he can probably find a niche on his team and make it, and not make it, but probably contribute a little bit. But again, running up and down the court in August and July and September is different from a regular season game in January. So, we'll just have to see how it translates.
It looks like he's gotten stronger, at least from some of the photos that we've seen. So maybe that will help. And I don't know if that was the strengthening up, like his back issue that he sustained a year ago and all that, but it looks like he has gotten a little bit stronger based on some of the photos that we've seen thus far from Shake Milton. So this is the good part about it. When you're a good team, you have camp battles, and even when you're a bad team and you're trying to find your way, there are some talented people that you have camp battles to see who's going to do what. But when you're looking at a team that has championship aspirations, and 76ers do, even these where they're on the more of the back end of that second unit, we're still talking about these camp battles and how important these players could be at some point during the season. So definitely going to be fun to watch. We'll make sure we keep everybody up on everything that's happening. You make sure you check us out every day on Locked On 76ers, because I'm excited again that I'll be starting with Keith from day one, from media day all the way through the entire basketball season. And I'm really looking forward to talking with Keith and you all out there as these games drop down all 82 as we get things rolling with media day, training camp, preseason, and then the tip off at regular season. Keith, come on, telling the folks where they can find this, man.
Yeah, you know what? Well, the thing about where you can find us now, we all know that you guys could go anywhere and you find Locked On NBA, right? Now go and make NBA Top 50 on Locked On NBA your second listen, because you made us your first listen, so make them your second listen, right? Which NBA player moves the betting line the most this season? Locked On and Bet Online odds makers present the NBA Top 50 most valuable players. Find it on Locked On NBA, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. But you need to make us your first listen. Secondly, what you need to do is you need to follow my man D, right, at Divine G975. You also need to listen to his radio show. Yes.
6 to 10 tonight.
Okay, from 6 to 10 on tonight, Friday, on 97.5 FM. It's called the Divine Giving Show. Then you also need to follow me on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. And you need to read my article in Sunday's Enquirer, or you could go to enquirer.com. I'm back. I'm off for vacation starting Sunday.
Look at that.
I hope I can still type, D. I hope I can still write because it's been a long time. But I'm doing a story on Sunday, so make sure you guys get it. And make sure you read enquirer.com and you listen to my man D on his show, the Divine Giving Show, in the evenings.
Yes, absolutely. We thank everybody again for making Locked On 76ers your first listen. Check out everybody else, of course, around Locked On NBA family. Locked On experts every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Everyone, have a great weekend. When we tap back in on Monday, we'll be kind of previewing things as we get ready for Media Day. Wake up bright and early on Monday for Media Day from the Sixers spot. It's going to be a good time. Keith, have a great weekend, man, because now it's time to get back to work. No more vacation for you.
Nah, it's time. It's about that time. Heck, it was a 2-month vacation. I think, 2 months.
That's a pretty good deal you got going on there.
Yeah, but just don't tell people.
All right.
All right. All right, man. Peace.
All right, man. See you.